Hey everyone, Professor Purple here, and before the video begins, I would like to kind of explain what all has been going on behind the scenes with the break that I have taken from YouTube and why it's been so long since I've posted. I do kind of explain it a little bit in the actual video. I'm recording this afterwards, but basically, um, it's just been very stressful making all the gaming videos because I have terrible equipment. And I have been just struggling getting these videos out because I will record a video and then I will just I'll be editing it and something will go wrong. The audio doesn't work. The video doesn't work. Something gets deleted because who the fuck knows? And it has just been extremely irritating. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry for the camera. I don't. I'm not using my good camera. Um, it's very late. Anyways, I have just been struggling making gaming videos just because of how much has been going wrong, and I really hate re-recording videos. Not because it's like, oh, I recorded this, now I gotta do it again, but just because I really prioritize having authentic content. I think that content thrives when it's just me going out doing something that I like doing and just unfiltered the full experience of me. And I feel like when it comes to re-recording something I've already done, it's so hard to be authentic because I'm going to be inclined to say the things I said in the previous recording attempt. I'm doing the things I did the previous recording attempt. By Sweet Carol. I had recorded an episode for By Sweet Carol. Um, and I loved the episode. I thought that it was some of the best gameplay content that I had made. I was very excited about it. And as I was editing it, the footage was corrupted. The middle area of the video for about 30 minutes. Mind you, this was a 2 hour long video, and a quarter of it was completely gone. And that was so crushing. And I just knew that I would not have the motivation, the excitement, um, the patience to sit back down and record that video again. And so I, decided I'm gonna take a break, um, see if I can get some of this stuff sorted out, um, and I haven't played any more of By Sweet Carol since that happened because as much as I really do enjoy the game, I really love playing it. I also, I still want to finish it on YouTube at some point, and there's that thing with the authenticity of the content where I've played the game before. There's not going to be anything authentic about me, finishing the game on my personal time, and then when I do figure out a more optimal way of doing the gaming videos, of playing it again and already knowing everything that's gonna happen. I don't know why my okay. That's much more comfortable. Here, let me scoot up. Um, and so I just I haven't I haven't played that or have nor have I played any other game on YouTube. And I would like to get back to that, but it's going to be a while. In the meantime, I'm going to be shifting focus for my videos. And I am going to primarily work on videos where I just I speak. I just talk. Maybe a light bit of editing. I'm not the greatest editor. As you will see in this video, I've got some very bare bones, put an image here, splice a video in there. It's nothing exciting. But I just kind of want this to be a space where I can just talk. And that's exactly what I do in this video. This is exactly what I want to do in future videos. Specifically, more tier lists. I've enjoyed doing those. Maybe some ranking videos, some reviews. I actually have made quite a few long-winded essay-like Steam reviews my senior year of high school, because I was pretty much doing anything other than school my senior year of high school. And so maybe I'll just like read those out. If I do, that'd probably be my only sort of scripted videos. I really don't like doing scripts when it comes to videos. I like just kind of sitting in front of the camera, knowing what I'm going to talk about, and just starting, like exactly what I'm doing right here, exactly what I did for this entire video that you're about to watch, exactly what I've done for most of my other videos. I think, as I said before, I really like the authenticity of just kind of freeballing it and just kind of going in with a general idea of what I'm going to do and then expanding on that as I start doing it. I'm realizing how much of a theater kid I really am, and how that's infecting the rest of my personal life now. Um, I do have a few videos that I know I'm going to be doing soon. One of them is going to be another Resident Evil tier list focusing on the films and the TV shows. Me and Frostskull have been watching all of the Resident Evil media, all of the movies. We have Resident Evil, the final chapter, and the Netflix show. That is the last two things we need to watch. Boy, has it been a slug getting through the show. I'm not going to say too much about it on here because I'm going to talk about it a lot more for the for its dedicated tier list, but my god, does that show suck. Anyway, Lego content, that's another thing that I know that I will be kind of getting back into. I want to start making some long form Lego content. Like, all of what I've got so far is just like the shorts where I make like custom figures and whatnot. I would like to do that maybe as like long form contents where maybe I like make all the characters of a certain movie or a certain game or something. Like Mini Superheroes Today. If you watch him, you'll know what I'm talking about. I also think I've got one video, Lego content wise, that has been in the works for a while, mainly because I started making the video when I had Photoshop through a class in my senior year, and now I don't have access to the Photoshop. I don't really want to buy Adobe Photoshop because it's overpriced. So I do have all the things for that video finished now, and now it's mainly just like the process of sitting down and actually talking about the content of the video. That's the one. Issue of just starting a video and freeballing it is forgetting things and losing track of what you want to say, like I'm doing right now. Some other stuff that I've got ideas of potentially doing is I'd like to do more content on games that's not just gameplays, like maybe like reading all the files in a game, just like kind of narrating those, like lore videos, theory videos. I mentioned before, like reviews, ratings, rankings, anything starting with an R that you can tie into video game content. And I think, you know what? I'll actually hold this one to myself for now, and if it ends up happening, then I'll expand on it. But anyways, that is pretty much what I've got for you right now. I hope that you enjoy the video, and yeah. um, you guys have a good one. Bye bye.
Hello, everyone. Professor Purple here. It's been a while since I've uploaded, because on the gaming side of my uploads, I've been ripping my hair out because it sucks to do with my current equipment. As you have probably noticed, I have one sexy individual sitting next to me. Care to introduce yourself?
anFrostSkullGP gameplays. Been making a video why the hell I've been gone for a little while too.
Yeah, so anyway, I have been inducting this man into the cult of Resident Evil.
I wouldn't call it a cult, but okay.
Into the fan base of Resident Evil. And
Cult would be meaning it's a bad game series.
he has yet to play all of them, but we have played a few of the multiplayer games together, so figured I'm going to be ranking the mainline games, excluding the original trilogy, because I have played them, but I haven't finished any of them yet, so I feel like it wouldn't be fair to include these in the ranking when I haven't actually finished the games yet. RE4, I'll be doing the original and the remake, because those are two games that I have finished in their entireties. So, I guess let's just go ahead and get started with Resident Evil, the 2002 remake, which I am just going to go ahead and start us off... Start us off strong with an S rank, because this game is the epitome of survival horror. It is easily, like, just the defining point in the series. I think, the original was definitely iconic, but the remake did everything possible to add to the original and make it a better experience, and the experience that the team at Capcom wanted to give us initially, but were limited by the hardware. And I mean, the graphics, they still hold up wonderfully today, even though the game was released on GameCube. Same for RE4, but we'll get to that later. So, with that, Resident Evil, definitely an S rank. Now, I know you haven't played this one, but do you have anything to add?
Honestly, it has to be S rank because, well, it's the first game in the series, and it made Resident Evil. The reason why Resident Evil still exists today is because of that game. I do really hope that the next actual remake they do is going to be one. I am not one for tank controls, so I will not be playing this. But I have seen a little bit of gameplay via him of it, and I have played it a little bit, but I won't be probably recording it because, well, it's just a pain in the ass to record and play at the same time. But it definitely deserves a spot where it's going to be.
Yeah, and I will second that. I do really want the next remake game to be Resident Evil 1, because that would set up all the stories between the characters ahead of Resident Evil 5, and it would probably not be as effective as the original RE5 if we didn't have that solid foundation of Chris and Wesker's rivalry beforehand. Now, moving on to Resident Evil 2, I'm going to put this one in A rank, because I like it slightly less than the original RE1. Still an amazing game, though. the graphics. This was the first time any of the original games got spotlight with the RE engine, which has been one of the greatest things to happen to Resident Evil in terms of just the graphics and everything. All of the modern Resident Evil games look stunning, and the remake, I think where the remake universe really shines is with characters and making characters a lot more likable. This game specifically kind of turned Marvin from a nothing character into a really great and tragic character. Same with Kendo. Kendo was amazing in the original game. He's absolutely hilarious, but his iteration in the remake was very tragic and
still pretty funny at times too. I mean, he definitely still had a sense of comedy to him. But
are we talking about the same character here?
Yeah, a little bit of funny stuff. My version of funny and your version of funny is a little bit different.
He cried over his dead daughter. Where's the humor in that?
I mean, come on
now. What? Oh, okay. Well,
I'm fucking with him.
Yeah,
you.
All right. Well, I know you've played this one a little bit more, so
I have. Yes, I have still yet to play it all the way through, and I do plan to play it all the way through, especially on YouTube here. But I personally would say it's S rank because it gives a really huge light to Leon and introduces him in a very fantastic way. Now, I'm sure the original game probably is a little bit better than the remake, at least for people who actually were born and played it first. But as a person who played the remakes first, I would definitely say A or S rank for this one. And I mean, Leon and Claire is just awesome. I mean, being able to see these characters fighting Mr. X, and just experiencing that as one of the first experiences in the franchise is one of the most memorable and easiest things you could probably ever do.
Now, this next one is going to irritate a lot of people, because I am one of the few people that really does like RE3, and so I'm actually going to put this in A rank as well. Now, I completely understand that as a remake, it was a very big disappointment. The original RE3 is definitely a better experience. One thing I will say is people definitely overestimate how much longer the original game was to the remake. Whereas, yes, the remake took out a lot of iconic areas. I will say that it's not actually that much shorter than the original. So, but I do understand where they took away, especially a lot of the tension with Nemesis, where Nemesis was a lot more scripted in the remake than he ever was in the original. And yes, that is definitely a shame. But I will say, again, the characters, Carlos, I mean, he was literally nothing special in the original. More of a nuisance, really.
Carlos.
I think Carlos was a pretty shit character in the original. And it the remake Carlos, I mean, everybody loves him. I've yet to meet a single person that doesn't like Carlos in the remake. Jill as well, I think. Jill's one of my favorite characters in the series, and I will say that she was never really all that interesting in the original games, and I think it's really the Resident Evil 3 remake is where she shines the most in the game series. I mean, other than RE5, and I mean okay, so maybe not where she shines the most, but it's definitely a much better interpretation of her character. She's definitely a lot more badass and more nuanced in Remake for 3. And, I mean, especially she's characterized better than, Resident Evil 1. Her line deliveries were always pretty flat in the original game and lacked emotion. But I know it's a very controversial opinion, but I really do enjoy Resident Evil 3 Remake. I especially love the gameplay over RE2. The dodging mechanic I think is really good, and some of the additional items like the coins and everything, I do think adds more replayability, and the fact that it's shorter does add more replayability to RE3, where it's one of the games that I've played the most now, and it's actually the first of the remakes that I've platinumed. So, it's got its shortcomings, but I still think it's an incredible game, and that's why I've got it. I don't think it's better than RE2 Remake, and so that's why I'll leave it behind it on the A category, but I do think that it is a really good game.
As for me, like I've said before with Resident Evil 2, I only play the remakes. I have played Resident Evil 3, but I have seen him play it, and I've seen Markiplier play it. I do like it. I do understand the controversy because of the original Resident Evil 3, but I mean, I gotta stand with my man's Carlos over here. I love Carlos. He's amazing. He's definitely not the boulder puncher Chris is, but Carlos, I love him. So definitely A rank for me. But again, I am a newer player to Resident Evil, so keep that in mind as well.
Yeah. Right, and then I'm going to go ahead and put up another S rank here, and I'm going to put this actually ahead. Can I? Okay, I'll just drag you behind. Resident Evil 4, the original game, is one of my favorite games of all time. If you've seen my MetaQuest Resident Evil 4 VR videos, you would know how strongly I feel about this game. And, you know, there might be nostalgia there because this is the first Resident Evil game I played, but I think everything is just on point. You know, the enemies, the camera, the control schemes, you know, was like revolutionary for the time. And as where like the control and the combat evolved, so did the enemies, giving us like smarter enemies that could wield weapons. Like it paved the way for the action trilogy, which I know isn't the most preferred trilogy of the series, but I think that RE4 is the best at balancing the horror and the action. I mean, the Regenerators are still one of the scariest standard like enemy types in the entire series. Like those fucker sound effects are just fucking terrible. But yeah, so Resident Evil 4, you know, the characters are great. You know, with the exception like Ashley. But okay, OG Ashley.
She's an
sucked.
NPC. That's why you can't play her. That's why.
Well, you can't play as Luis, but he was still pretty damn good in the original RE4.
Well, that's because you suck up to Luis.
Marvin's an NPC.
Yeah, he's not good at NPC because all he does is lay down. But I still love Marvin.
Exactly. You can love an NPC. Ashley
is an NPC that moves around and does this thing
and gets you killed so fucking often.
Yeah, she does. Yes.
Yeah. The amount, you know...
I'm not saying she's a bad NPC, but I'm saying she's okay.
I refuse to play Resident Evil 4 professional difficulty without the knight armor for Ashley. At least, like, the OG professional difficulty. So, like, anytime I'm playing Resident Evil 4 on, like, a new profile or a new game, I'll beat it, and then the moment I beat it, I'll play separate ways so I can get the knight costume before I go in for the professional run, because screw Ashley's AI on professional mode. Fucking sucks. But, yeah, so I'll hand this one off to you.
I have not completed. I haven't really completed any of the games except for 5 and 6, of course, because I played it with him. But I do love Resident Evil 4. For me, it would be an A rank just because I love newer games and remakes, and the remake was really good. But it definitely deserves, you know, a higher rank than B at least. I play it in VR a lot, and honestly, I'm thinking about maybe I'll play the VR version of the Remake 4, just for YouTube, just so you guys can introduce, just so I could, you know, play a VR game that is Resident Evil that we have access to. But I love the game. I mean, it's also a nice kind of extension to Leon's story after 3. Well,
he wasn't in 3.
What I mean is, like, he's not in 3. That's why I'm saying after 3, because you don't see him in 3. And I do like how he's become, how his character develop is amazing. And of course, Matt Mercer being a voice actor for him was...
I mean, in this game it wasn't that.
I know, but Leon is a character, but I love Matt Mercer. He's obviously, I'm a big, huge D&D person, but I love Matt Mercer.
I will say, I find it...
And Nicolas Balastoletis, of course.
I find it really funny that, RE6, and I think Matt Mercer did most of the movies as well, like the CGI movies.
Most of them.
But I find it funny that that's Paul Mercer, and then the original actor. Yeah, his last name is very similar.
Mhm.
Yeah, Matt. I think it's Mercy. I think there's an I in there, Mercier or something, but
It's Mercer.
I mean Paul. Sorry, Paul Mercier.
I was say Matt Mercer is.
Yeah, sorry. So Resident Evil 4, and so I just find it funny that the last names are so similar.
They are pretty similar, but still, overall, Resident Evil 4 original, great.
And so now the remake. Now, this is the only one on the list that we got the original and remake for, and this one also gets S rank, no question. And I put it above OG because I think this is another remake, just like the original Resident Evil 1, where it added so much. And, this one did take a lot more than the Resident Evil 1 remake took away from the original game. But I think that, what it added improved the game. So the knife combat is, I think, my favorite addition any of the remakes has made to a single game, other than maybe like the Crimson Heads and Lisa Trevor in RE1. But I loved the knife combat. I thought it was, it added so much to the gameplay experience, and I think Nick Apostolidis. I think I'm saying his last name right. It might be Apostolides, but
we're American. We don't know.
I think that he is an amazing Leon. Really excited to see RE9 and Leon's return there. But I think the Resident Evil 4 remake, same as the other remakes, really improved the characters. Ashley, what a goddamn improvement of a character the remake did. Like, Ashley is so much better in the remake than she was in the original. And even, they improved Luis a lot, which I already loved Luis in the original game. So the fact that they were able to improve him in the remake as well. Luis Serra is my favorite character in the series, like, hands down.
I'm sure they could tell.
But I also think Separate Ways was leagues better than the Separate Ways in the original game. Whereas Separate Ways in the OG, I basically play just to get the extra costumes and the Chicago typewriter. Beyond that, I never touch it again. Separate Ways for RE4 Remake, I think, is just an incredible expansion to the story. I mean, it's like an 8-hour long game, and it's like $10. And the fact that you can unlock things in Separate Ways that you can use in the main story as well, it adds so much to the game. Also the bosses. The bosses in the original Resident Evil 4 were all amazing, but, yet again, the remake was able to improve them. The Krauser boss fight specifically was, just a major improvement. I think they also raised the stakes with Krauser by quite a bit by changing him to be the one that killed Luis instead of Sadler. And I genuinely think that all of the little story changes that they made in Resident Evil 4 really just kind of helped to build on top of what was already one of my favorite games in the series, and just build the RE4 remake to improve that, which is, not an easy task at all. So that's all I've got. So if you've got,
I really have nothing to say because, again, I haven't played it, but I mean, I do agree with you full-heartedly. It is probably it's so much better than the original just because it adds so much to it. And I mean, the visuals are great, and the storytelling, and then of course Nick Apostolidis being the voice actor for this one, just makes it so much better. It's definitely one of the best games that they have made so far.
Right now, RE5.
Boulder Puncher, Boulder Puncher.
I
Boulder
think
Puncher.
In terms of story, I'd put it in A, but in terms of the game, I'd put it in B. I really like the story. I think Sheva is a very interesting character and a great partner for Chris. I think Chris and Albert Wesker's rivalry is, the defining point of the series to this point. I mean, we had build-up from Resident Evil 1, Code Veronica. and then we got to see it culminate in RE5, where that wrapped up a huge chapter of the series for Chris, Jill, and Wesker, and that's one of the reasons I really want to see a Resident Evil 1 remake before a Resident Evil 5 remake. But I mean, Wesker, such a fucking badass in this game. He is hands down one of the greatest villains, I would say, in gaming in general, and easily the best in the series. He, I think the only other villain in Resident Evil that is anywhere near as iconic as Wesker would be Nemesis.
Stars.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say, everything about, like, the villain and the characters, it's, Resident Evil 5 is great with the characters. Now, this one, where I'd say the gameplay suffers from the most. Now, mind you, we played this together in the multiplayer, and I've played half of the game single player. I haven't finished it in single player because of one of the biggest setbacks this game has, the AI for the partner. Now, a lot of people have taken, like, the issues with the partner's AI and have put that solely on Sheva, to where a lot of people hate Sheva, which it's not Sheva's fault at all. She's a great character. And if you were playing the game as Sheva, then Chris would be just as frustrating because it's just the AI issue. The only thing with that is that, you can't play as Sheva the first time you play the game. You have to play as Chris unless you're playing it in multiplayer. And then other than Sheva, the drawback with this is it leans a lot more into action than Resident Evil 4 did, but keeps the not being able to move while aiming, which makes the gameplay itself a lot more frustrating because you're given a lot more enemies than you would have been given in a single area than in RE4, whilst also having it's a more manageable setback in RE4, but with a game that focuses itself much more on action, it is very, very noticeable in RE5. And specifically, the fucking insta-kill bug enemies. I always hate bug enemies in Resident Evil games. They are my least favorite class of enemies.
A good solid few hours of cussing with those enemies. No, I would very well agree with those.
We spent like half of a day getting killed in the exploding warehouse factory. We spent like half a day getting killed because of those fucking enemies.
On normal difficulty.
Normal difficulty, yeah. Those fuckers suck. As do most insect Resident Evil enemies. Yeah. I have a particular hatred for the Novicidors in RE4 as well. But yeah, so I do like RE5. There's only one Resident Evil game I don't like, and we'll get to that. I do think all the Resident Evil games are enjoyable in some way, and all of them have strengths and drawbacks. So there's not a Resident Evil game I hate, except for one, but we'll get to that later. Now, I'm sure you've got more to say on RE5, considering it's one that you've played all the way through, so I'll go ahead and hand you the floor.
So, the very first thing I want to nitpick at is the goddamn split screen for multiplayer. Oh my god. And when we get around it, you will be able to tell if you haven't played the game before. It is some of the worst split screen I have ever witnessed.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, just wasted space.
Wasted space, and it's so wonky that it can really mess with your brain a little bit every now and then. It's really kind of gets confusing, but like Purple here said, like the professor said, I love 5 as a story. It's great. It's got the tank controls that you can't move while shooting. You can't, and the certain fixed camera angles are really fucking annoying. Obviously, as I said, Boulder Puncher Chris! And I really hope out of all this, if they do remake it, they do keep in the Boulder Puncher from Chris, because, I mean, it would be unplayable without that. But I love, the game is awesome, story's amazing, characters are awesome. Again, whole NPC AI thing is the same thing, because it's the tank controls that really get you. But I will say, if you have a buddy to play with a friend. It's a lot more easier and a lot more fun to just play with someone else. 5 and 6 are both the same way. I say 6 probably a little bit easier to play with by yourself, but 5 definitely play with 2 people. I love the game. Game's amazing. It's just one I cannot wait until the remake comes out. Again, I hope Resident Evil, the first one, came to remote, not only because it'll actually, hopefully expand upon the game to begin with, and we'll be able to see the Alkali Mountains and the mansion again, and actually solidify some background of stars, memberships, and Albert Wesker, but also it is the only game that isn't in the past like 20 years that has not been remade. Because the last remake was 2002. I wasn't even born. He wasn't even born when that came out. So I do feel like they are going to be remaking Resident Evil first. At least I really hope so, because if they make 5 or 6 or whatever, I mean 6, okay, but 5 they need to solidify. At least in the remake universe, they need to solidify Chris V. Wesker, Big Daddy Albert Wesker first.
All right. Now, this one is another one that I have the minority opinion of, and I'm not sure if you would put it here as well, but I would definitely put it B rank, and I'm considering putting it above 5.
I would
not
put
for
it
the
above
story,
5. Not for the story,
yeah,
only
but
just
I
because of
think
the game.
particularly because especially when we played it together, we had a lot more fun, or at least I had a lot more fun with 6 than with 5. And that comes down to it being one of the first games in the series that lets you move while you aim, which was very necessary when it comes to the action horror, just making it as a game a lot easier to approach than 5. But also, the story definitely needs some work. I think, though, Leon's campaign I thought was pretty great overall. I did enjoy Sherry and Jake's campaign, which I know that's one a lot of people have issue with the hand-to-hand combat focus. But you can ask him. I have such a blast with the hand-to-hand.
He would literally use Jake if he could throughout the entire game.
Especially with Mercenaries. We've been playing Mercenaries to get like costumes and stuff, and we take the rooftop mission, and I play as Jake because you can get a lot of expanded time using hand-to-hand combat for kills, and we just grind out points on the rooftop, and I really like using Jake. I know that it's kind of out there to be hand-to-hand combat with zombies. I mean, like, some get like Carlos, he punches them with his perfect dodges in the remake and everything, but Jake's definitely the only character where it's like, you equip your fists and you start,
It's not
going
really
to work.
zombies he fights, though. He fights mostly Ganados.
Well, not Ganados.
Whatever version of Ganado they are.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it the Javo in his campaign? I know that's what Chris and
The
Pierce
Javo,
face.
the Ganados kind of feel like the same thing to begin with. But yeah, I think it is the Javo. Yeah, I think it's the Javo.
But I think the only campaign that I did not enjoy playing was Ada's. I feel like Ada's wasn't really necessary, and with multiplayer specifically, the secondary character doesn't appear if you play the campaign single player. But if you play multiplayer, it is a random agent with a gas mask. His name is Agent. They didn't even go the extra mile to like
Agent. You gotta make sure.
they didn't even go the extra mile to make it like Hunk or some established agent character. It was just Agent. And anytime Ada did an action such as or Agent couldn't do puzzles. He could not do puzzles. Ada had to do all the puzzles. Agent could only shoot. And anytime Ada uses her grappling hook to get to a higher area or opens a door, Agent just disappears and then materializes next to her whenever the animation's done. He has no power in the game other than shooting. And while it is definitely funny, we've discussed briefly about Agent maybe just being Ada's imaginary best friend, but he is just such a random nothing character to the point where it's kind of funny. But also, And we've played most of the campaigns twice now, so that we can play as every character. We haven't gotten to Ada's campaign for the second playthrough, but the first time we played it, I played as Ada and he played as Agent. So I can't really speak to if playing as Agent was annoying with all of those setbacks because I haven't done it yet, but I imagine it would be.
Oh, 100%. Not being able to assist you in any way besides, oh, look, enemy, shoot thing, was horrible. Like, I hated, and I don't know, I feel like that campaign was just too rushed. They're like, just threw something in. Because, like you mentioned, Hunk, he's already he's a character that exists within Umbrella, and he's a dude with a mask. That's all he is. You could have just put him in there and then allow him to do more than just... Because you had all the other campaigns had the same thing. You could have just taken bits and pieces from those campaigns from the second player to add it as Hunk and just have him... Maybe, like, I understand the whole thing with, like, the grappling hooks. That makes sense. But put, like, ladders or different areas for him to crawl into to actually get to where Ada's going, or have Ada grab him or something like that. Because, I mean, I feel like Ada's pretty strong at this point. You know, I mean, or he can grab onto her and they can just both, go forward. Instead of basically teleporting, like some freaking god that exists in the game. I don't know.
Yeah. Ooh, let's talk about the worst villain in the entire series.
Yours is gonna be...
Okay, you know what? I forgot about Irving, actually. I fucking hate Irving. Oh boy, that little bitch is fucking annoying. But let's talk about the worst main villain. Derek Simmons. My god, is that guy annoying as fuck and so fucking persistent too. I would like to point out that a lot of his dialogue is super, like, fucking, like, just anime level, just, like, heightened, like, K-drama type. Like some of his line deliveries are just so fucking over the top, where it's like, I don't know if I'm playing Resident Evil or watching a soap opera. Specifically when he's, like, first introduced, and Helena's like, hey, you're Helena, I can never remember. Yeah. And it's like, hey, you're the one behind all this. And he's just like, wherever would you ever come to such extreme accusations? I mean, you guys are the prime sus. I cannot believe that you would ever think this of me. And it's just like, it's so over dramatic and like...
It's, for a Resident Evil game, it's too over dramatic.
Yeah.
Like, they like to keep their bad guys kind of calm and kind of in the background. Which
and
is
then there's like
good thing
James
about,
Marcus and then, Resident Evil Zero.
James
And the
Marcus.
world will burn in an inferno of hate!
And the world will burn in an inferno of hate.
Yeah, there's a couple of characters, including Simmons, that I would say that just don't fit. It would fit more of like a play or a movie or something like that as a villain, but not the games.
And I'd also like to point out some of his like a fucking centaur T-Rex.
He turns into a goddamn T-Rex.
A giant fly is his main. I think Derek Simmons is just like the fucking the Moon Knight meme. Random bullshit. Go. That's Derek Simmons basically.
He's
in a nutshell.
a toddler that just doesn't want to give up. That's all he is.
But and another thing is moving back to Jake and Sherry's campaign. I really like the chemistry between Sherry and Jake, and both of them being the children of people directly responsible for,
pretty much all of this, really.
Yeah. I think Jake. It is such a shame that he will probably never get time to shine again unless they remake 6, because he is such an interesting and I think well-developed character. I really liked how much of a douche he was in his campaign, and now it's like Sherry's here trying to save the world, and he's like, yeah, let's save the world so I can get $1 million.
$5 million.
Yeah, $5 million.
No, 50. I'm sorry.
However many $1 million it was.
It was 50.
Like every single cutscene, he brought up his paycheck. He's like, "All right, I'm helping you with this because I'm getting paid to do it." I also love just the complete hatred between Piers and Jake. Like any time they're their campaigns intersect. I just love how much Piers shits on Jake. Which, I mean, especially when it comes to Chris and Piers' campaign, one of my favorite moments is when Piers is telling Chris that he can't let his hatred for, or like he's just got an irrational hatred for Ada. You know, Ada having killed most of Chris's men, or Carla, but you know they didn't know that. Carla having killed most of Chris's men. Yet anytime Piers sees Jake, it's like attack on sight because he's an insurgent. You know, love Piers, but I think he's got to reevaluate that. And then, you know, speaking of Piers, I think Chris and Piers' campaign is also. I mean, I think most of the campaigns, the main characters have great chemistry. Other than, I mean, maybe not Leon and Helena's, and especially not Ada's. There's no chemistry there at all because Agent doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, for Chris and Piers and Jake and Sherry, their chemistries are amazing. I mean, Piers was just one of the saddest deaths. I think they really set him up to be, you know, Chris's successor, and for, you know, Resident Evil 6 to be where Chris would either retire or die. And then they pulled the rug out from under us and they killed Piers instead. And I think that their dynamic was one of my favorites throughout the game.
I want to chime in here. For those of you who have heard this or believe this, that Chris and Piers' campaign is basically just a copy and paste of Call of Duty. As someone who played Call of Duty and have religiously played Call of Duty for a while now, of course I haven't played Black Ops 7 because that game just fucking sucks, but I have played every single rendition of Call of Duty, including the campaigns and multiplayer, and I am here to say it's nothing like Call of Duty at all. Sure, the announcer we hear sounds similar to General Shepard, whatever, but that's basically calling any military shooter Call of Duty. That's basically calling Battlefield Call of Duty. That's calling Battlefront Call of Duty. Because it's so... Because I get it. You're fighting people who have guns. But there's so many different games out there you do the same exact thing with military personnel. And that's what the BSAA is. Military personnel. So there's no reason for you to be like, oh, it's too much Call of Duty. Kiss your own ass and shut the hell up.
All right. Well, I think, you know, that's one thing with RE6 is unfortunately we've never been able to play any of the online, just because like nobody's ever on them, and you know I would have liked to, you know, play some of the online modes in the game. I just didn't have it when people still played the online modes, so that definitely sucks. But I think that's enough for Resident Evil 6.
One more thing. As you mentioned with the whole Ada and Agent campaign, as a person who played Agent, it was horrible. Like, as I mentioned, but not only because, like, his guns suck. Like, it takes a full clip to take down one enemy. I really hope if they do 6 again, which Capcom, if you do get any sort of information about this video, please, for the love of God, put Hunk as Ada's person. And if not, you don't even need to explain why Hunk is there.
Yeah. And if not Hunk, at least just flesh out whoever, you know.
Exactly.
So that they're more than just like a fucking
figment of her imagination.
I will say though, you know, spoilers for later on in the video. Probably better than Revelations Player 2.
Oh, 100%.
But all right, and then anything else on 6?
No, that's all I have on 6.
So RE7, that's going to be another game that goes up into the A rank, and I'll put that above 3.
I pissed myself.
RE7 is definitely the scariest in the series by a long shot, and I am very happy that RE9 is going to be made by the same team. I'm sure that
fucking hag. Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm sure that Grace's campaign is going to be extremely scary and probably scarier than 7 from what they've said.
They've said that it's supposed to be scarier than 7, so that freaks me out because I was very dumb. I played 7 on VR first like an idiot. He can confirm this. I screamed like a little bitch.
Yeah. And to be fair, is as somebody who played Resident Evil Resident Evil 7 flat first, the VR ones terrified the shit out of me too. It is a terrifying game, a terrifying experience. And one of my biggest praises for the game, though, is actually the DLC. I think that it is probably some of the best DLC, not just in the series, but in general. There are not a lot of games that I've played that have better DLC than Resident Evil 7. The story expansions, the end of Zoe, it is a fucking fever dream, but my god, is it fun to just fucking, like, punch molded with fucking cyber hands. And that, is coming from a guy who also liked, Jake's melee combat and the knife combat in RE4. I guess I'm a huge melee combat guy in my RE games, I'm realizing now. Or, like, Clancy's story, Clancy Jarvis. My god, did he go through shit.
I forgot something. Resident Evil 5. I want to point out, I hope we get to see Josh again.
Josh!
Because he's the only helicopter survivor to survive the entire series. All the other ones die.
Yeah, helicopter pilots do not have luck in the Resident Evil games, but Josh, he piloted a helicopter and he made it. Let's take a moment to remember all the other lost helicopter pilots.
You probably should have been in the academy for just a little bit longer.
Anyway, back to 7. Now with the DLCs again, like the daughter's story where you play as Zoe just as everything's kind of started. I like all the DLC, especially Not a Hero being a free DLC. That's something that we don't see very often for story-based DLC in a lot of games.
And the mini games.
Yeah, the mini games.
They're so out there, but they're so much
or like
fun.
like Jack's birthday when you're going and collecting food for Jack. That is
oh my god.
Ethan Must Die. Makes you tear your hair out. Boy, is that difficult. But now on to the main story. I think Ethan is one of the most relatable characters. I think it was an excellent choice to make it first person, to kind of hide his face, just to give immersion. And obviously that first person choice is, I think, what led to them making Resident Evil 7 VR, because it's, I think, the first Resident Evil game that was ever made in VR, because it's definitely in VR before, because Resident Evil 4, that was 2021 that came out on MetaQuest.
Okay.
So Resident Evil 7 was the first VR game, and I think that it being first person is a huge part of why that decision was made. I love all the VR versions of the Resident Evil games. I really hope RE9 comes out in VR because I love playing these games in VR. Here, I'll stop talking about Resident Evil 9 here, actually, because I think after the ranking, I'd like to talk about my hopes for the game. Now, I think the bosses are all extremely memorable. Jack Baker is, he was kind of the revival of the Stalker enemy because this game came out before, Resident Evil 2 Remake, so I doubt Mr. X would have been as good a Stalker if they didn't have the foundation that Jack laid. Also, the fact that he taunted you, because he's one of the only Stalker enemies other than Dimitrescu, but obviously he was first. So he was the first Stalker enemy that talked to you. And that actually made it a lot scarier because, here you are, and he's, taunting you and all that, and, he's, come here, boy, I'm gonna get you, and obviously he sounded a lot scarier than that.
You need to be part of the family!
And then, I think Possessed Mia, absolutely fucking terrifying. That moment on the stairs, especially in VR, is just fucking soul-shattering. Marguerite, disgusting, absolutely just fucking gross as hell. And then Lucas is, kind of like a jigsaw sadistic fuck. So, I think the focus on a smaller scale event and all of these characters, they really get time to
This would
shine.
be like the smallest scale we get because it's only it's a house, It's not a mansion. It's just a house in a very small area.
Mhm.
So I think this is the smallest one we've ever gotten.
Yeah, and the second act of the game, I feel like isn't as strong as the first act. I think the boss fight with Evelyn is pretty underwhelming. But all in all, Resident Evil 7 was exactly what Resident Evil needed after 6, and if Resident Evil 7 didn't do well, I'm sure that half of the games on this list would never have happened.
Yeah.
So, so do you have any...
I love Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7 is one of... after playing 2, 3, and 4... 5 and 6, where there's not much horror based upon it. Obviously, again, didn't play Resident Evil 1, but there's not much horror. There's a lot more action and stuff like that. And then you get to play Resident Evil 7, where it's constant. You're looking behind your shoulder, you're looking around each corner because you don't know where the fucking enemy is. You can hear him, but you don't know where he is, where he's going to be, where he's going to pop out, or she, or whatever. And I mean, the whole thing of like. It's literally the whole thing of Ethan just trying to go find his wife, his love, and just trying to live a normal life, and then all of a sudden this shit happens. It's a lot better than like some big outbreak and some other thing. It's a nice, decent break from what we got in all of the other games prior to this current game. And I mean, it's amazing, and I would love to play through it, and I will be playing through it again. All the way through it, hopefully, before I just shit myself or something like that.
Yeah.
But
So, for Village, that's definitely also an A rank. And I know a lot of people would put it behind 7. I'm going to put it ahead of 7 because it, out of the series, is the only other game that I think is similar to RE4.
the only thing I think about that game that I just won't leave me, that I don't like, is the fucking hand. The ability to just shrink.
Yeah, I got it. Ethan, Ethan's hand trauma is just insane throughout both of the games
Both of the games.
Just,
But at least the first one, has it stitched together where, okay, sure, if it was done quickly enough, that's what the people used to do in past, and sometimes it worked, but just magical goop and just slapping it on, what the fuck?
And I think it does make more sense when you find out he's molded. Like, it would make
does,
sense that the regenerative
as,
properties would be stronger for him.
First time playing, you're sitting there going, wow, that's just some video game logic bullshit right there.
Yeah. But I'm definitely a fan of action horror when it's balanced with survival horror. That's where I think the series shines best. That's why I really like RE4. That's why I think Village I enjoy better than Biohazard. And I mean, the enemies in Village, whereas I think, Biohazard is some of the most memorable villains just because of the time we get to spend with them. Same thing with Village. Specifically, I mean, Lady Dimitrescu. Let's talk about her first. I mean, I considered putting Village in D rank because she's got some Ds that I think a lot of people would like to rank. And
Hey, I got a girlfriend and I like to rank her Ds. So.
I think, obviously the marketing was leaned so heavily into her, and I think it was so funny that she's like the first boss that you kill just because of how every single trailer is like, hey, here's giant vampire lady. I think Heisenberg is another especially memorable villain. I think I really like the whole the whole fucking why am I blanking on names here now?
Well, he's thinking about that. Yeah. I have to say, my favorite boss in the entire game, I have not played it, but I've seen Mark Paul play it, besides Lady Dimitrescu turning into a fucking dragon, basically, would have to be the doll.
Oh, yes.
That is one of the most terrifying things about that game. It's not because it's small, it's not because it's tall, it's not because it's a fucked up motherfucker who just, is basically a different version of what's-his-face from the X-Men. But it's terrifying. And for someone who absolutely hates dolls, like, I have a passion to destroy every doll I come across,
and
because I hate them.
Especially the fetus monster.
Yes.
That thing in VR nearly made me stop playing the VR version of the game. When I got to Angie's house, I saved and I stopped playing. I saved it for the next day. I'm like, I'm not doing this before bed. But Heisenberg, I really like the whole Woody Harrelson meets Magneto aesthetic he's got going on.
I mean, him being voiced by Woody Harrelson, I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, you know what? Live action Village casting Woody Harrelson as Heisenberg. Let's make it happen. And if not Woody Harrelson, then Bryan Cranston, Walter White,
Oh, well,
Heisenberg.
add a little bit more hair for him, yeah.
Completely nothing to do with Resident Evil, but they're making a Malcolm in the Middle revival.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
they put the trailer out not too long ago.
Interesting. I thought that show was dead a long time ago.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a if it's a show, it's probably going to be short, but I don't know if it's a show or a movie.
Which, I mean, for what I know, is the show. I know they have.
Yeah, I know that is. I don't know if the new one it follows like an adult Malcolm. Why are we talking about this? Okay. I think Village has a great overall story. Ethan's end, I think, was a great way to.
It was definitely a surprise because after all the games, none of the main characters have died. All of them have survived. I know. Yes, Pierce has died, but I don't consider him as a main character because he is a secondary character, not a main one. But you have Leon, Chris, Jill, Claire, Ada. Like those are the main characters that I can at least think of. It's getting a little late, but for just him to die, it was such a shock of like, what the fuck just happened? Capcom loves to hang on to their characters, and Ethan was such a good character, but then it becoming Rose as the next person in the DLC. I feel like they are going to expand upon Rose in the future, and at least I hope they do, because Rose has so much potential.
Yeah. I also think that Resident Evil Village was also the first time that we've seen any of the main Resident Evil characters post 6. I know that Chris was in 7, but it was so brief and the not a hero. I guess I forgot about the not a hero DLC briefly there. So I guess that would also be with Chris.
But he's still not 100% potent in the games. Like we know he's there and he's doing something with the BSAA or whatever.
And so I think it was really interesting to catch up with Chris, and I think that Chris's role in the game, while very limited up until you played as him, I think it was very interesting to kind of paint Chris as like. I mean, they kind of painted him sort of as a villain at first. I mean, he murdered Mia, kidnapped their wife, and we had no idea what would drive him to do that.
He just can't.
Yeah,
get a normal life.
To the point where, when the trailer showed that segment and the game hadn't come out yet, people were like, "Is this Chris? I mean, is this somebody else? Is?"
I thought. I was like, it couldn't be Chris.
Yeah, and it probably doesn't help that Chris looks absolutely nothing like he did in RE7. But I think that Chris's use in the game was pretty effective for what the hell's going on here type scenario. And overall, I think Village was a wonderful modern rendition. I really liked that the kind of they took the mold they introduced in RE7 and they used it with the Megamai scene and everything to make a departure from the typical zombies. I love the zombies. I think Resident Evil games are, iconic with zombies, and probably one of the best uses of zombies in any sort of video game.
Because it actually makes sense.
But I think that using folklore creatures was also really interesting. Lady Dimitrescu being a vampire,
And her daughters also being vampires, basically.
The lycans, like werewolves, and I'm really sad. There was one enemy. I'm not sure if you know about this, but there's an enemy that was cut from the game where it would have been in Moreau's segment, where he would have actually been a stalker enemy throughout his segment instead of just like the boss fight and the one section where you're running on the like platforms and he's lunging at you. And there would have been other enemies that would have actually alerted him to your presence if they caught you. Mermaids. There would have been mermaids, and so you would have to go into the water to find certain segments, but if mermaids came on you, you'd have to basically get to land. But they also had siren abilities, and so they would be able to stun you and alert Moreau to where you are with their shriek. I think the official title for the enemies was mermaids in the concept art, I think. But they definitely were sirens. I thought that would have been really interesting, and especially fit in with the theme of like folklore
100%.
monsters.
And I mean, the fact that this was literally just an actual kingdom that they were, instead of just like a huge city or whatever, or a small little house, was just very different from anything we've ever seen in any Resident Evil game. And I hope we do get to see something like that again, because just getting to see something that like it's obviously was set in the modern era, but all of a sudden it's just you're thrown back in time with people who probably don't even know what the internet is quite yet. And I mean, it's a good game.
Yeah.
Good game.
Also, Castle Dimitrescu looks extremely intimidating in VR. Like, it's just fucking huge. But then, now, Mother Miranda, I do think is a very interesting village. And it's, I think, a shame that she should be killed off in Village. Because she would have been, I think, had she been given a couple more games, as iconic as a character like Wesker or Nemesis. She had the markings of the potential next big bad of the universe, but I understand that they were wrapping up the Winter's story, and it wouldn't make sense to have her be a villain in like a Leon story.
That the Winter's story is only 2 games, at least so far.
Yeah, and I'm sure Rose will carry on some of the Winter's legacy if they ever bring her back. I know Capcom's notorious for not answering their cliffhangers. But I think it was especially very interesting to see how she tied back all the way back to Spencer. And where you have Spencer, who's a character who spent his entire life, right up until the moment he died, trying to be a god, trying to, gain immortality.
And she basically is a god.
And she gained said immortality before she ever even met him. Before he was born, she became immortal. And so it's something special to see a character who was a villain in like the first and while he was definitely a background villain, but a villain who was pulling the strings for 4 of the first 5 games, and for that character to have been for another character to have gotten what that character wanted throughout those games centuries before he was even born.
Now that you say that, I do think maybe Leon should have been the one to kill her, because then, of course, he'd learn that it wasn't actually just Umbrella that was doing it. It was her. She was the one who was orchestrating all of it, even Umbrella and everything behind the scenes from Castle Dimitrescu and all that other crazy shit.
Yeah, I don't know where Leon would have fit into the Winter's Saga, but
I'm sure. I feel like if Rose were to meet somebody, it would either be Chris, part of the Blue Umbrella, or Leon.
Well, I mean, Rose does know Chris. I mean, Chris, I'm not sure if you know anything about the Shadows of Rose DLC.
I have only seen snippets. I did watch Markiplier play it, but I don't really remember much of what it was, actually.
It's basically Chris, Ethan basically entrusted Chris with Rose, and Mia's kind of out of the picture, which they don't really ever expand on that at all.
I thought Mia died.
No, Mia was alive because Chris found her in a cage. Mother Miranda had kidnapped her, but did not kill her. And so at the end of the game, Mia's on the chopper when Chris and Rose get out.
Because she gets headshot in the fucking dome.
Well, that was Mother Miranda.
Oh, that's right. Mother Miranda was pretending to be me.
Yeah.
That's right. I forgot about that. I'm a little.
Yeah.
I haven't seen as much of Resident Evil 8, which again, when I do play it, I will kind of be refreshing all that jazz.
So basically, Shadows of Rose kind of explains that Chris has trained and basically taken care of Rose. So, I'm assuming whenever we see Chris again, that's when we see Rose again. Unless,
Probably.
it's like around the timeline of RE9, if it's a few years after that, Rose would still be very young. So we'd either see Chris taking care of her there, or maybe she's just, off at Blue Umbrella Daycare. Who knows?
God, that would be terrifying.
I do know one thing that probably could have actually made Leon make sense in Village is, I'm not sure if you knew this, but there was cut concept art. Ada was supposed to be in Village. Which would have been very interesting considering she mostly appears, or only appears really, in the games that Leon's in terms of like the mainline games. But in the first segment where Ethan meets the four lords and Mother Miranda, it seems like Ada would have swooped in to save him. And she would have been wearing like a plague doctor getup.
Huh.
So, and I'm assuming they cut that because the story was already pretty packed.
Yeah,
But
and
that,
I mean, Ada being... It would be interesting because that means that technically Leon would be in close vicinity because, like you just said, Leon's basically been near Ada at all times, and... I mean, I know it's just... I feel like sometimes it's just a coincidence, but at the same time, like...
So
I feel like Ada is always hounding on Leon.
Yeah, so I think it would have been interesting to see how Village would have handled Ada. And if Ada would have been in Village, I'd really like to see how she might have interacted with Chris, because that would be, I guess, the first time Chris would interact with Ada after RE6 and after everything with Carla.
Yep.
So I think that, that could have made for some interesting stuff, but I can see ultimately why they cut it. Now, I think we've probably spent more time on Village than any other game, so let's go ahead and move on to Revelations. Now, I don't think you know anything about this game.
I have no idea, so I'm just going to let you talk about it, and we'll just move on to the next.
Gonna put it in B. It's a good game. I like Revelations. There's just a lot of flaws with it. And that flaw mainly comes down to how much of a spy thriller it turns into in the second half. The first half is some great survival horror. The enemies are terrifying, they're very strong, they're complete bullet sponges. The villains, like the Skag Dead comms officers, fucking terrifying. And I do think that the game had huge potential. Where I think, as well as a lot of other people, is Revelations 1 and Revelations 2 had opposite problems. Where Revelations 1 was a single-player game that felt like it should have been multiplayer, whereas Revelations 2 was a multiplayer game that should have been single-player. I think it was great seeing a game that expanded on Jill and Chris in the BSAA before the events of Resident Evil 5. I think there were some characters in Revelations that were great characters, and some characters in Revelations that were terrible characters. Quentin Keith. And it just, near the end of the game, it really just became spy thriller, espionage, double, triple, quadruple agents, and it was just very unnecessary. And I want to say that the tyrant boss fight in that game is one of the most out there boss fights in the mainline games. Like, I mean, some of those like spin-off games and multiplayer games have a lot weirder experiences, but for a mainline game, because I think Revelations is considered mainline, the main villain teleports and it causes hallucinations. Which, I mean, Evelyn, very similar, except that she didn't really teleport, she just caused hallucinations, and in those said hallucinations, she teleported. But also, this isn't anything connected to the Megamycete. This is just, your standard, I think it was... Oh, man. I'm trying to dig into the lore, and now I'm kind of forgetting some stuff. But I think it was a variation of the T-virus. T something, T Phobos virus, something like that. But whatever it was, it wasn't Megamycete. It wasn't anything like that. It was just, like a standard virus, and somehow this dude can actually just physically teleport. So, the ending of the game seemed way more like a spy thriller than the survival horror that the first part of the game set up. But other than that, great game. And now, we move on to the only Resident Evil game that I don't like at all. Yes, that we don't like, and I'm going to put it in D for despise. I know that there's some people that like Revelations 2. I fucking hate it.
And I've got to say, in all honesty, it's the biggest piece of dog shit.
It's the only game that I will probably never play more than once. We do have to play the ending again because we got the bad ending, and I do want to, at the very least, get the canon ending just so I can say I've covered all my bases. But, oh god, my battery's low. Here, let me fix my brightness quick. We won't be too much longer now. But anyways, it's a fucking slog of a game to get through. I did not like, really, and I think the story was fine. I think, there are some interesting characters.
The story was great. I mean,
the gameplay was fucking trash.
It was atrocious. The camera angles, the combat, the fact that only one character could fucking do combat.
Yes, the inclusion of player 2 just felt like so unnecessary. Whereas Revelations 1, as I said, was a single-player game that should have been multiplayer because you had a partner, you had a BSAA agent with you, the entire time, Jill had Parker, Chris had Jessica, I think her name was. I cannot remember. I tried to clear her from my mind. I don't like her very much. And so you had a partner for the whole of the run-through of Revelations 2 with a gun that, was an agent. Instead of having some, other character who does not use a gun, who points a flashlight or just points their finger at enemies, and that's the extent of what they can do.
I mean, Moira, at least I could attack the enemies and I could actually help you with, like, when they got onto you or whatever, when they grabbed you or whatever, which was kind of okay. But with the little girl that I just cannot remember her name. Natalia. Fucking horrible.
Yeah.
Like, that's
I will
what
say,
you do.
we had a lot of fun making fun of the game while we played it.
Yes, we did.
But I could not find myself to be invested in the game as much as I've been invested in any other game of the series.
This one, I say definitely really needs a remake, and if they do remake it, basically just make it an entirely different game. Keep the same story, but make it, the gameplay has to be completely different.
Yeah.
Just because it's not going to work the way it is right
And,
now.
I mean, the only thing with the story is, the reason behind, of course, like, Moira not using a gun, that's very rooted in the story and her trauma. I think if they remade it, they should just cut the multiplayer thing aspect entirely.
Yes.
If it's a single-player game, that would, I think, be better. And also, the other big nitpick I have is how easy it is to get the bad ending, because it's not even really clear in the first place that there's a choice to be made. So, if you haven't played the game, basically in Chapter 3, there is a boss fight with a character named Neil who turns into the Incredible Hulk, just like Steve Burnside in Code Veronica. I don't know why, but characters in Claire-centric games like turning into the Incredible Hulk. And in this boss fight, there's a moment where once it's over, you get in an elevator and you get attacked again, and there is a gun on the floor. And what pisses me off the most about this is that Moira does not have a button prompt on her screen. Claire does. Naturally, the player that has a button prompt would hit the button prompt.
Mm-hmm. Which is why I didn't.
Yeah, so that's what we did. I, playing Claire, hit the button prompt, and bada bing, bada boom, I grabbed the gun, I shot him, we moved on, and then in the next chapter, Moira fucking died. And then we play as Barry. And Natalia gets taken over by Alex Wesker. Why? Because apparently Moira needed to walk up to get the gun while Claire was sitting there struggling, and Claire just has to ignore the button prompt, and Moira has to crawl up to the gun and take it herself. There is no indication that that is a major choice moment in the game.
Nope.
All there is the button prompt on Claire, and anybody who plays Resident Evil games knows that when there's a button prompt, you hit the fucking button prompt, or else you die. So, I fucking hated that. That pissed me off so much when we got the ending, and I'm like, what the fuck was this ending? This is garbage. So I googled it, and it's like, oh, no, okay, so we got the bad ending. How did we get the bad ending? That's how we got the bad ending. Hated that. So Revelations is the one game that I don't think I'll play again, unless you wanted to play through it as a character with a gun.
I'm good.
Okay.
I just want to get the good ending and be done with it and delete it forever.
So, now that we're done shitting on Revelations, I want to take just a few minutes to talk about what I'm hoping for Resident Evil Requiem. We are very excited for this game to come out. We just cannot wait to play it. It is probably one of my most anticipated releases of next year, and there's a lot of good releases next year. You know, Lego Batman game, Wolverine game, this year.
I said, we be in 2026, my guy.
Yeah, so there's a lot of great releases coming out this year that I'm excited for, but Resident Evil 9 is the one that I am most anticipating, so I cannot wait. You know, I've only got like a month to go. But basically, I love Leon. If you haven't been able to guess by, you know, Leon, 2 of 3 of my S-rank picks, I am very excited to see some characters from non-mainline games kind of get explored
Leon
here.
Does not die in this game.
If Leon dies, that would be tragic. And I think I wouldn't be opposed to it. It would be sad, but I think it could be a great character moment.
Be a good ending for Leon. So much shit.
I would only want Leon to die if Ada had something to do with the game. Because, I mean, so far, Ada's been in every game that Leon's been in. Mainline-wise, I mean, she wasn't in Resident Evil Gaiden, but to be fair, nobody was in Resident Evil Gaiden because it's Resident Evil Gaiden. And, I mean, honestly, it wasn't even Leon in Resident Evil Gaiden. It was, you know, green, bleeding bioweapon guy who killed and took Leon's place for whatever fucking reason. I think Eidos should be in the game. I think that their chemistry, their stories have always been intertwined, and it would be a huge thing for Ada to just not have anything to do with the game that Leon's in, because she's thus far been in all of the games he's in.
I also really hope, this is a little bit different than in Ada, but I hope, because they showed off Raccoon City, sorry, in the trailer, and I hope when Leon goes back, he actually does revisit, maybe as like a short memorial of the RPD. Just to be like, you know, revisit his first days as being a cop and his introduction to the entire bullshit that has happened.
We have seen the exterior shown off in the trailer, so I'm hoping that means there's some interior stuff. But another thing I would love to see in RE9 is very ironic, considering that I hated the game that this character originated in, Alex Wesker. I think there is a case to be made that the mysterious woman we've been seeing with the clipboard seems to be like a secretary or some sort of assistant to Victor Gideon.
He's not the main villain.
I don't think Victor Gideon's the main villain, and if you want to explore that a little bit more, I recommend Nerd Space Games. I will link the specific video that I'm referring to in the description, because he's kind of what got my gears turning on this. Victor Gideon seems kind of like Lady Dimitrescu and Jack Baker in the way that they've been marketing their games, centric towards one villain who does not end up being the main villain of the game. And this mysterious woman, we have seen her. We know nothing about her. That is pretty much the same situation that Evelyn and Mother Miranda were in for the trailers for the last 2 games. I think she is going to have something to do with whatever's going on, and she's going to be a huge threat. And I also think that she looks extremely similar to Natalia, and, you know, timeline-wise, Natalia would be grown up by now. I think it's possible that this may be Alex Wesker, because while I have not gotten the good ending in Revelations 2, I have seen it, and it does kind of imply that even though it's the good ending, that Natalia may have succeeded, or that Wesker may have succeeded in becoming Natalia. And just the fact that the you know, kind of like the facial features and everything of this mysterious woman are pretty damn similar to Natalia, I think that that's potentially where they're going. And you know, another thing with with Natalia being Alex Wesker and everything, you know, Requiem implies a full circle moment for the series. Now, obviously, we're getting that with going back to Raccoon City, but also Wesker. That is a name that has just become so iconic and synonymous with everything that has happened, especially with Umbrella and Raccoon City. And so having a Wesker villain, that being Alex, would definitely be a full circle moment. Is it possible for Albert Wesker to somehow return? Absolutely. I think that, that could happen.
We've seen cloning before in many different games and stuff like that, so it's a possibility, yeah.
I don't think it'll happen in 9 because it would be such a huge letdown if Wesker came back and Chris had nothing to do with it. And while the voice actor that played Chris in Village is going to be in Requiem, I don't think it's going to be as Chris. I mean, he also played Carlos in the remakes. They really like reusing their actors. It does not make sense timeline-wise for Chris to be involved.
Not yet.
Yeah, so I definitely think that Victor Gideon's not going to be the main villain. I have hope. Even though I don't like Revelations, I think Wesker could definitely be a very interesting antagonist and be a full circle moment.
I hope that they have Alex Wesker be in there, because then it would bring Leon to the whole thing of like Wesker and why Chris hated Wesker and all that jazz. Because I'm sure Chris talked about it every now and then to Leon, because those two have definitely met each other quite a lot in between the games, and they know each other quite a bit. I cannot wait until 9 comes, mostly because of Grace Campaign and the Hag in this game basically being completely more terrifying than 7, which already is, because she can bend over and look underneath the goddamn tables.
Another thing with the Hag and my predictions for 9, I know that there are 2 huge theories as to the Hag's identity. Lisa Trevor or Alyssa Ashcroft. I personally do not think it's Lisa. If you've played Umbrella Chronicles, you would know that she was in Spencer Mansion when it blew up, and yes, I know that she's very, durable, but I think an explosion might just be the extent of that durability.
Explosions kill most characters in Resident Evil.
And I mean, hell, she's nowhere near as durable as Nemesis. I'll fucking tell you that. And Nemesis,
or Mr. X.
Yeah. I mean, she's probably more durable than X, but because X just had the T virus. I mean, that's what she had too, but she got a fucking lot of it. Like poor. Yeah, she's very tragic, but I don't think she's the Hag. I mean, like, their designs are not as similar as people are saying. What I will say is Alyssa Ashcroft, I think, would be not only the better choice, but just,
It makes sense.
Yes. I think, specifically with... I can't remember exactly, but I think that there was some, like report out there that the code name they used for her during development was, like, some sort of mother... I can't remember exactly. I'd have to look.
It was a different language name for mother.
I don't think it was a different language thing. I keep wanting to
something along the lines of mom.
Yeah, I keep wanting to say maggot mommy, but that's a Evil Dead thing. But anyway, I also think that thematically, it would be one of the first times we see a tyrant that was actually or like a bioweapon stalker enemy that was a character the main character personally knew. I know a lot of people want to say Nemesis was Billy Cohen. First of all, I don't believe that, and second of all, Jill didn't know Billy Cohen. And so it'd be kind of the first time, that we see somebody that the main character knows turn into a bioweapon, other than, like Steve Burnside in Code Veronica. But, that's also a game that needs a remake.
Also, Resident Evil, not Code Veronica, Revelations 2, because Claire technically knew the one dude.
Oh yeah, Neil. Fuck Neil. Screw Neil. He sucks.
It still is one of the people, and I'm sure one of the commenters out there were probably like, "You forgot about him."
No, you know what? I'm gonna complain about Revelations again. I forgot Neil existed.
Neil sucks.
Yeah, because like they said that he's apparently this antagonist. I forgot he existed. He was so fucking unmemorable that when they brought up Neil again right before his boss fight, I'm like, who the fuck is Neil?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
I had to remind him who he was.
So fuck Neil, fuck Revelations 2. Back to 9. I think what I think would be great is if whenever we get whoever the final boss is, if the hag isn't dead yet, and I think it would be a very powerful scene if there was somehow, some way, and this might be a stretch, and maybe I'm fumbling the bag here, but I think it would be really cool if the hag, if it is Alyssa Ashcroft, would, near the end, regain just a sliver of her humanity and, somehow be able to save Alyssa Ashcroft from something dying in the process. I think that would be something we've never seen before, is a bioweapon. Actually, you know what? I guess that's kind of what happened with Steve again. God damn it, Steve. Anyway, I think that would be a great moment, and I feel like that connection would be a lot more powerful, considering for Steve, he died because he was sexually aroused by a person that he knew for 2 days, that being Claire. Whereas for Alyssa Ashcroft, the connection would be a lot powerful because it's her daughter. And I guess the one last thing that I gotta say I'm interested to see is if you are actually able to drive Leon's Porsche, because there's rumors that you can, and I'm wondering how that'll be integrated. So. It would be hilarious just to mow down zombies in the semi-open world Raccoon City, just to mow down zombies in a Porsche.
In a Porsche, of all things.
Yeah.
This is if you don't know what a Porsche is, it's a basically tiny little itty-bitty car.
Yeah. I wonder if that's like an agency car, or if Leon's just making bank and just, is like, let's Porsche it up. But
I don't think he'd be a Porsche person.
Yeah. But I'm extremely excited for Leon. Him and Jill are my two favorite protagonists of the series.
Chris and Leon.
And I definitely am very excited to see what his story is and see kind of what he's been up to, because we have not seen him in a game since Resident Evil 6. And then, the next step for me is I'd like to see Jill, because we have not seen her in a game since Resident Evil 5. So, yeah, that is all I've got. So, I mean, if you have...
Not really. I mean, you've been a Resident Evil fan a lot more than I have, so you have a little bit more hype, a lot more hype than I do. But I'm still very excited for this game. I still am very interested to see how Leon, I mean, from the trailers of what we've seen, I feel like Leon does have some sort of virus again in him, which is kind of ironic and funny because he's been infected so many different times. I mean, I feel like he has residual shit from either the infections or the cures he's gotten, because he's definitely a lot stronger than he used to be.
Seeing him fucking like the little fan kicks that he was doing, where he fucking kicked a zombie like across the room. That's some Chris shit right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's some strength that he normally wouldn't have.
I mean, to be fair, in RE4, some of his kicks exploded Ganado heads, but...
Well, that's also... But, I mean, like, the explosion of Ganado heads versus a fucking zombie that just goes fucking flying like you get Chris punched a boulder is different. But still, I am very interested. And of course, I'm not completely interested in Leon. I want to see Grace's campaign, and I wonder how that goes. I do believe that Alyssa Ashcroft is actually the Hag, or at least will be the Hag. I mean, I would be surprised if it isn't, but I also wouldn't be so surprised if it was. But it is unique to see what's going to happen and where they're going to take it from here.
Yeah. And one more closing thought I have is I think that Capcom did make an incredible choice with Resident Evil 9 to have, I mean, it's not the first game to have 2 campaigns, but I think they made an incredible choice in having it so that one campaign is survival horror and one is action horror, because those are the two biggest, the two biggest fan groups you have in Resident Evil fandom. Is you've got the survival horror fiends, you got the action horror fiends, and I like both. I think both are great. So I think that having the 2 campaigns focus on those 2 different, sections of the Resident Evil is an amazing way that Resident Evil 9 can appeal to everybody in the same way that they wanted Resident Evil 6 to appeal to everybody. They just pushed it too far with 6, and I think having
too far, and I feel like some points in the game were a little bit rushed.
Yeah, and I think having the just the 2 campaigns focusing on the 2 different points of the series, I think is just an incredible choice, and I'm excited to see, because I mean obviously with every campaign in the series there's a little bit of overlap, and like we've seen Leon and Grace interact a little bit in the trailer, and that's actually another thing. Is I definitely think that Grace's boss is in some way villainous. Because if Leon is working with the government and he didn't know that there was FBI in, where Grace was sent to,
yeah.
I mean, that would be something he would know. He's looking for a missing officer. Obviously, a missing FBI agent would also be on his list in that case. So the fact that she wasn't on his radar makes me feel like her boss, who I know has a name that I just cannot remember yet. I'm sure that I will end up remembering his name once the game comes out and I get to see him more than like a 5-second clip. But it makes me think that he sent her there off the books, which would be very suspicious.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But also, I do feel like Umbrella has some sort of play in this too. Obviously, Umbrella Corporation is gone now, but maybe like there has the extensive network of Umbrella underneath Raccoon City. I wouldn't be surprised if something survived off of that, or someone survived. Like Birkin, obviously Birkin didn't survive, but like,
well, I mean, underneath Raccoon City, the Hive self-destructed, so probably not that bad. But I mean,
not the Hive itself,
yeah,
but maybe there was. We haven't seen the full extent of, because I mean, we've seen Umbrella shit. It's massive, and I mean it's huge.
And of course, we know Victor Gideon definitely had something, like he worked with Umbrella.
Yeah, Victor Gideon definitely is some sort of Umbrella ex-employee or scientist or something like that. So I do feel like, and because I mean it's Raccoon City, this is the place where everything started. Everything, and I mean I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be very surprised if they just had nothing to do with Umbrella at all.
One last thing from me, because I'm going to either put this out there, because I'm one of the minority that believes this now, but I'm going to put this out there so that if it does happen, I can say, haha, I was right, and so that if it doesn't happen, you guys can all laugh at me. I don't think that it is Sherry. I don't want it to be Sherry that is taking over Hunnigan's role. I think Ashley would be a much better choice for 2 reasons. The Resident Evil 4 remake made Ashley a lot more likable, as well as showing her having a desire to be an agent. Whereas Sherry in RE6 was a field agent. I don't think it would make sense for her to resign herself to be behind a desk.
Too good of a field agent to sit there and do that.
She was out there in the field shooting people, healing, regenerating, and all that shit. So I think it would be a weird character choice to then make her dispatch. Whereas I think, Ashley would make a lot more sense. So
Specifically because, I mean, her father would definitely be like, you can't be a field agent, but you can be an agent.
yeah, like I would not see Mr. President Graham, former President Graham, I guess at this point.
Is there even a new president at this point?
Yeah,
Because the last one got infected. And
well, I'm sure that after President Evil got dispatched, I'm sure they replaced him. Yeah, so I would prefer if it's Ashley. So if the game comes out or if another trailer comes out and reveals who it is, I will either make a video saying, "Hey, sorry guys, I'm a fucking idiot," or "Fuck you guys, I was right." So
I wouldn't mind either way, but I do agree with him that it should be Sherry.
Ada. Ashley, guys.
Ashley.
It's late.
It's midnight, yeah. But I do believe that it should be her, just because of the simple factor of Sherry. She's an amazing field agent, and I feel like they could do so much more with Sherry in the field than out of the field.
Yeah. And like, I wouldn't mind if it was Sherry. I
wouldn't
hope,
mind.
and
It'd
I
be
think
cool.
it's Ashley.
But,
Yeah. So with all that being said, I think this video ended up being a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. But I think I'd like to do another one of these rankings whenever I play the original games in their entirety, and then of course whenever E9 comes out, so I can add those to my ranking. But without further ado, I hope you enjoyed the video as much as these two nerds enjoyed getting behind a camera and chatting about a game series they both like. Yeah, you have a wonderful night. Bye-bye!
Leon, 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 but my sister. Leon, 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 Leon.